Imagine a young boy, barely a man, standing before a military recruiter. He's small, underweight, and looks far too young to fight a war. The recruiter turns him away. The Marines, the Navy, the paratroopers, they all say no. But this isn't just any boy. This is Audie Murphy, and he has a fire in his eyes that no one can extinguish. Little do they know, they're looking at the future, most decorated American soldier of World War II. Today, we're diving deep into the incredible, almost unbelievable story of Audie Murphy. How did a poor farm boy from Texas, who had to drop out of 5th grade to support his family, become a symbol of unmatched bravery and resilience? His journey is more than just a war story. It's a testament to the human spirit's ability to overcome impossible odds. Audie Leon Murphy was born into crushing poverty in rural Texas in 1925. He was one of 12 children in a sharecropper family, and life was a constant struggle for survival. His father abandoned the family, and his mother passed away when he was just a teenager. From a young age, Audie was forced to become the man of the house. He hunted small game to put food on the table, not for sport, but for survival. His skill with a rifle wasn't honed on a shooting range. It was perfected in the fields and woods of Texas, where every bullet had to count. These harsh beginnings, while tragic, forged in him a self-reliance and a quiet determination that would later define him on the battlefield. When the attack on Pearl Harbor happened, a patriotic fire was lit in young Audie. He wanted to serve his country, to fight back. But there was a problem. He was only 16, and he looked even younger, standing at just 5 feet 5 inches and weighing barely 110 pounds. He was far from the ideal soldier in the eyes of recruiters. Undeterred, he waited until his 17th birthday, when his older sister falsified his birth certificate to make him appear 18. With this little white lie, he finally managed to enlist in the U.S. Army in June of 1942. They didn't see a hero. They saw a skinny kid. They almost turned away. But the Army had just accepted its greatest future legend. After basic training, where he reportedly fainted during a drill, Murphy was shipped overseas. His combat journey began in North Africa, and he quickly moved on to the invasions of Sicily and mainland Italy. It was here that the quiet boy from Texas started to reveal the warrior within. He wasn't a loud or boisterous leader, but his actions spoke volumes. Proved to be a natural soldier, calm under fire and incredibly effective in combat. He rose through the ranks from a private to a staff sergeant, earning medals for his bravery along the way. He wasn't just following orders. He was often the one leading the charge, volunteering for the most dangerous patrols and missions that others shied away from. His comrades respected him not for his size, but for his courage and his uncanny ability to survive and succeed where others failed. But it was in France, in 1944 and 1945, that Audie Murphy's legend was truly forged in fire. By now, he was a battle-hardened officer, a second lieutenant leading his men in the face of brutal German resistance. He had already earned the Distinguished Service Cross, the second highest military decoration, for his extraordinary heroism. But the event that would earn him the Medal of Honor, the nation's highest award for valor, was still to come. The date was January 26, 1945. The place was the Colmar Pocket in eastern France. Murphy's unit, Company B, was dug in, facing a fierce German counterattack. The weather was freezing, the snow was deep, and they were heavily outnumbered. The German force consisted of 6 tanks and waves of infantry. American artillery support was ineffective in the blizzard. The situation was desperate. Murphy's men were being cut to pieces, and his company's position was about to be overrun. 2 of their M10 tank destroyers were knocked out, and 1 was on fire, its crew dead or wounded. With his men falling back, Murphy ordered them to retreat to a safer position in the woods. But he stayed. He stayed behind, alone, to cover their withdrawal. What he did next is the stuff of military legend. Wounded in the leg, he climbed onto the burning tank destroyer, which was loaded with fuel and ammunition and could have exploded at any moment. He grabbed its .50 caliber machine gun and began firing at the advancing German infantry. For over an hour, Audie Murphy single-handedly held off an entire company of German soldiers. Surrounded on 3 sides by the enemy, he swiveled the machine gun, cutting down soldier after soldier. The Germans were stunned. They couldn't figure out where the intense fire was coming from. They threw everything they had at him, but he wouldn't budge. At one point, he was on the phone with his headquarters. directing artillery fire on the enemy's positions, all while continuing to lay down a hail of bullets. When the officer on the other end asked how close the Germans were, Murphy calmly replied, "Just hold the phone, and I'll let you talk to one of them." He only stopped when he ran out of ammunition. Miraculously, he was still alive. He climbed off the smoldering tank destroyer just as it finally exploded behind him. Stumbling back to his company, despite his wounds, he refused medical evacuation. Instead, he organized his men and led them in a successful counterattack that drove the remaining Germans back. His actions that day saved his company from annihilation and secured a critical victory. For this single act of inconspicuous gallantry, at just 19 years old, he was awarded the Medal of Honor. By the end of the war, Audie Murphy had received every military combat award for valor the United States had to offer, plus French and Belgian awards for heroism. He was credited with killing, capturing, or wounding over 240 enemy soldiers. He was a national hero, the most decorated soldier of the war. When he returned home, he was met with parades and fame. His boyish face graced the cover of Life magazine. Hollywood came calling, and he embarked on a 20-year career as an actor, starring in over 40 films, including the 1955 classic To Hell and Back, where he played himself in the movie adaptation of his autobiography. Out on the surface, he had it all: fame, fortune, and the adoration of a grateful nation. But beneath the surface, a different battle was raging. The war hadn't ended for Audie Murphy when he took off his uniform. He suffered from what was then called battle fatigue or shell shock, but what we now know as post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD. He was plagued by insomnia, nightmares, and depression. He slept with a loaded pistol under his pillow, a habit from the battlefield that he could never shake. In an era when mental health was stigmatized and soldiers were expected to be stoic and silent about their inner struggles, Murphy did something incredibly brave. He spoke out. He broke the silence and publicly discussed his personal war with PTSD. He talked about his nightmares and his reliance on prescription sleeping pills, an addiction he fought to overcome. He called on the U.S. government to do more to study the emotional impact of war on veterans and provide them with better care. He was one of the first public figures to destigmatize the invisible wounds of war, becoming a courageous advocate for veterans' mental health. This, in many ways, was one of his most heroic acts. Audie Murphy's life was tragically cut short in 1971, when he died in a plane crash at the age of 45. He was buried with full military honors at Arlington National Cemetery, where his grave is one of the most visited sites. So why does this story still resonate so deeply today? It's because Audie Murphy represents the duality of the soldier's experience. He was a hero of almost mythical proportions on the battlefield, a small man who became a giant through his courage. But he was also a human being who carried the heavy price of that heroism long after the guns fell silent. His life reminds us that true strength isn't just about facing enemy fire, it's also about facing the demons within. He was a farm boy, a soldier, a movie star, and an advocate. He was a legend who never forgot where he came from and fought his entire life, both for his country and for his fellow veterans. Audie Murphy's legacy is not just in the medals he wore, but in the enduring symbol of bravery, sacrifice, and the quiet resilience of the human heart. Thanks for watching. If you found this story as inspiring as we do, please hit that like button. Subscribe for more incredible stories from history, and let us know in the comments what you think about Audie Murphy's legacy. See you next time.